It's gonna be good, it's gonna be great, it's gonna be better, I can't wait. Making my move, live for the day, sing like a bird, fly like a plane. Come spill with me, Jenny D.
People, thank you for joining me with another episode on Spill With Me, Jenny D. I am so excited. It's August. We're talking to women authors from Pittsburgh. So this series, I just am so delighted, and I have my beautiful guest here today. Before I introduce her, I would like to thank my Spotlight supporter for August, Lance Blankenship Roofing. Thank you so much. I'll have his information below. But with further ado, I'm so excited because this is a good friend of mine. And her work that she's doing is just incredible. So I want to read this because I want to tell you, this is all about my girl. Okay. So my guest, my beautiful guest, is Reyne O'Shaughnessy. She has such a fascinating career. Like, she's 35 years, was a commercial pilot flying some of the largest aircrafts, which I cannot believe. In aviation, she learned that safety depends on protecting the safety limitations of the airplane. But after years of flying and after facing her own health wake-up call, she found herself asking a question: couldn't let go. She couldn't let go. Why do we protect safety margins, financial margins, and profit margins, yet we've eliminated the safety that every human needs? The question sent her entirely down a new path. She became a national board certified health and wellness coach, began coaching leaders and executives, founded Piloting to Wellbeing and the Aviation Health and Wellbeing Institute, and spent years studying what happens when people, health and well-being, when they live at capacity, which I love that word. All that work eventually led her to her new book, which we're going to talk about today, At Capacity: How to Reclaim Your Margins in the World That Glorifies Overload. Today, Reyne is helping women rethink what success really looks like, not by doing more, but by reclaiming the margin women need to sustain their lives. Reyne, I'm so happy you're here today. I'm so happy to talk about this book and to talk about you and all the wonderful things that you've been doing. Reyne, we've seen each other a couple times, but I did have you on my show. I don't even know. Was that last year? And
I think it was.
I think it was last year. And we focused on just about you and your journey. But today, being at StudioMe, and actually Reyne has been here before, so she's familiar with StudioMe. Thank you so much for being here.
Well, thank you so much, Jenny, for offering me this opportunity again to be in this space and to sit with you, because what you are doing, you are changing the world just one podcast at a time. And so when you asked me to be on this again, I was overwhelmed with just gratitude. So thank you.
Reyne, you are such a sweet person. And she knows she doesn't like to talk about herself, but I say, girl, we are talking about you today.
Just a little.
We are talking about Reyne because she's got a beautiful, like her book that's out. And, we were at a women's group the one day, and you said to them, they're all at capacity. Yes. So let's get into this. Reyne, I have to admit, when I first did hear, the title At Capacity, I wasn't exactly sure. I was like, what does this mean, living at capacity? Now I know what it means, but I want the listeners and viewers.
Yeah.
So why did you choose that title?
Yeah, that's a great question. And that's exactly what I wanted people's reaction to be.
Yes.
I wanted them to say, like, what is this? So I created this title because people are living at capacity. Now, we know what capacity means. You go to a parking lot, you go to an elevator, you go to a restaurant. And when you see at capacity, it means there's just no more space. There's just no more space. So I thought to myself, and it rung a bell in me, that we are all living at capacity.
Mm-hmm.
You know, people are waking up, Jenny. They're waking up exhausted. They're waking up because they're holding this mental load, whether it is family, whether it's divorce, whether it is working in and outside of the home, taking care of children, taking care of elderly children. And we have thought of this as just normal. You know, having human capacity, in my definition, is to have the energy, the focus, the resilience, the well-being in order to sustain life. So the title, At Capacity, didn't come out of my research. It came out of something that I had to answer for myself. Why are people living at capacity? And it's just not women,
Right.
but it's primarily women. I think the whole world is at capacity. And we're going to talk about
We don't recognize it.
how we got there.
Well, yeah, because you were at capacity.
I am at capacity.
I use that. I use it all the time
Yeah.
everywhere I go. So one of the lines, okay, in
Yes.
your book really stopped me. You write, "We protect safety margins, financial margins, and profit margins. But somewhere along the way, we've eliminated human margin." Where did that idea come from?
Yeah, that actually originated in aviation. You know that I used to be an airline pilot. For 35 years, I sat in the cockpit. So I'll share a story that I learned during my 35 years in the cockpit.
That's
and that
amazing, by
is-
the way. Thank you
Well,
for keeping us safe.
yeah. It was a very unique job back in the 1980s, and I'm very grateful that I was one of the trailblazers. But back to the aviation story is every aircraft is certified. It is designed to fly in an aerodynamic envelope. It's just physics.
Okay.
If you fly that airplane out of the aerodynamic envelope, just think of it as a square, just for our talk today. If you fly it out of that square, which is the range in which that aircraft was certified to perform optimally, if you fly the aircraft out of that window, that envelope, into the margins reduce, your risk increases, and performance declines. And bad things happen, like we fall out of the sky.
Right.
So why would we think humans are any different? We are designed to be in a certain structure. So that story came out of years and years of listening to people in and out of the cockpit just struggling with their health. And as we go on in our life, it doesn't get any easier because we're working inside and outside of the home.
That's so true. And you said 35 years.
35 years in the cockpit. Yes.
I don't know how you juggled everything because you have how many boys?
I have 3 boys.
You have 3 boys.
I did, and that's another podcast how I
Uh-huh.
juggled it, because there are many women in your audience that are at capacity,
Right.
and they're trying to juggle it all. And mine came at the cost of my health, because there is a cost to living at capacity.
Right. And we, I say as women, we sometimes don't put ourselves first, especially, knowing that we are run down and we are just at capacity. I think I'm going to use that word the
Please
whole
do.
podcast episode. But yeah, I do believe that, we need to tell each other sometimes, hey, you need to slow down. You need to slow down and start concentrating on you. So people often assume flying airplanes taught you about aviation.
Mm-hmm.
But your book isn't really about airplanes. It's about people. What did 35 years in the cockpit teach you about human capacity that the rest of us can apply to our own lives? That's really interesting. I love that analogy.
What flying airplanes taught me is to respect limits.
Okay.
You know, as a pilot, we have fuel limits. We never look for an airport at the very last minute. If there are weather considerations, we don't wait until the very last minute to make changes. So we have limits. And if you exceed those limits, that is when, again, bad things start happening. So I would say the whole thing about flying is to respect the limits of aerodynamic flying. And we have to really hold true to that because as women, we're going in all different directions. You know, it affects a lot of what we do and who we are. So I think that was the big lesson that aviation taught me was to respect limits because there's a cost. What is it going to cost me to keep going full throttle, as we say?
I love that full throttle, as you say. When did you, in your 35 years of being a pilot, a captain, when did it kind of click, like that you felt like, all right, this is just too much?
Yeah, great question. Well, I was sitting in my doctor's office and I was diagnosed with catastrophic high blood pressure. And he said, you need to get to the ER now. Now, the health issue is an issue, but besides that, for a pilot, that is a grounding event.
Right.
That is my livelihood. So that was the first time that I said to myself, I am not at capacity because the term hadn't even been connived yet.
Right.
It just came out of living at capacity. So I had to learn how to relive because our society has just forced us to live at such an accelerated rate that we don't even know that it's costing our health. So that is when I had my aha moment where I needed to start paying attention to myself because all doctors said you need sleep, you need this, you need all the things that we know are very, very basic. But as women, we discount them because everyone comes before us. Everyone comes before us.
Exactly. Yes. And I, talking to you too, and just hearing about your journey, Renee, I feel like, wow, like the things that you've done. We were talking about this off air, but she wears many hats. Like she has so many titles because you do so much and you do so much to help other women, other men and women that are at capacity.
Thank you. And let me add one more thing here. It's not only people, organizations are struggling too. Communities are struggling. Families are struggling.
Right.
I'm called into boardrooms. I have to tell you this story. I was called into a boardroom, and the first question they asked me is, why are we losing good people? Why are we losing good people?
Why?
So I gathered the data, I studied it that night, went back into the boardroom with one conclusion. I said, you don't have a production problem. You don't have a retention problem. What you have is a capacity problem. And the room went quiet. Well, for at least a few seconds.
Right.
And I told him the story about aviation and the aerodynamic. And I said, why do you think that if we have to keep airplanes flying using that same metaphor, that same story, why do you think there's anything's different for human beings? Pilots never, ever argue with physics. Never argue with physics. So the corporations, the organizations that are that will be winning in the future aren't just going to invest in AI. They're going to be investing in human capacity because at the end, it's not going to be your edge or your competitive advantage if you just invest in AI or in performance or in production. Your real secret sauce is investing in the capacity of humans. And our communities are struggling too. Our communities that used to have mentors, women mentors, they don't have the capacity anymore. So there's no time left. Families are getting the leftovers of women who are working all day long. They're working 13, 14 hours a day. They are at capacity. And then they come home to their families. I was one of them, and they get the leftovers. So not only are individuals at capacity, I can't save the world. I want to save the world.
Please, Renee, save us.
I want to save the world.
Save the
But
world.
but
Yeah.
organizations, corporations, communities, families are struggling too. So the sooner that we are able to step back and ask the question, am I living at capacity? Is this me?
Right. You have to recognize it.
You have to, and it is the hardest
It is
thing.
hard to recognize it
So
in
hard.
yourself, don't you think, Renee?
Absolutely.
Because I think that when you had the aha moment and then you realized, working professionally and trying to juggle everything, you knew you were struggling. So there's, other men and women out there that are like, wait a minute, that's me, but I didn't even recognize my own self that this is happening.
Yeah. And Jenny, we go and we go and we go until we get that diagnosis, until we're exhausted, until our relationships are broken. We go, our anxiety, we keep going until something like that stops us in our tracks.
Right. And I am so glad that you went to the boardroom and you did your research too, because like you said, it's happening in companies, it's happening in communities,
Yes.
and we need to recognize this before it gets bad and worse.
It is already bad. Like I coach 6 executive women. 3 are doctors, 2 are lawyers, and 1 is a tech genius. They have all, Jenny, they have all stepped back from their roles because they can't sustain. I mean, these women are brilliant. Don't get me wrong. They're brilliant. They're capable, but they're tired. They are exhausted. So each one of them has stepped back from their role on the corporate level. One bought a franchise, California Closets. She owns a franchise. The other one is making tutus and selling them on the internet.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Yeah, I mean, so these are women that have gone to school for years and years. It was their career, but the system is broken.
Right.
We have gotten very, very good at optimizing systems at work. But the one system that we need, we have ignored. And that is the human being inside of the system that keeps everything working.
That's so true. That's so true. And like you said, sometimes, and I find this, we talked about this, I think, in our other episode that we had, we are looking for a passion. Sometimes you do a job, a profession that you think this is the end, I got to stick with this. But hearing that those women are now doing other things, they're doing their passion.
They are stepping back. They're stepping back for something that is more creative and sustainable.
I love that.
You can't be going at this capacity.
We should say every time we
I
say that
know.
word.
We cannot keep this momentum up without it costing us. And that is what we're seeing now more than ever. And I have the research, and I'm not going to bore you with the research, but we have the research now that says that women are taking to antidepressants more than ever.
Mm-hmm.
Their best friend has become the vodka bottle
Right.
at night. One
Substance,
drink,
yeah.
substance, one drink becomes 2 drinks. And I'm not judging.
Right.
I am not judging, but it's a very slippery slope. And, where do we go from there? So we're heavily medicated, either self-medicating or not medicating at all.
Right.
And so we're breaking, the systems are feeling it. So how do we fix the systems? What really breaks my heart is that the women that I coach, and I coach from from the C suites down to the bedroom suites. It doesn't matter, but they think they're broken.
No,
They think they're broken.
absolutely not.
And after hearing their story, I said, "So tell me your story." And so when they tell me their story, and after hearing their story,
right.
they say things like, "Oh, well, I am blessed. I really have nothing to complain about." But after hearing their story, they sometimes say, "Well, I guess I am doing a lot." So the best
They
thing
don't
to hear,
recognize it.
yeah, sometimes the best kind of therapy, so to speak,
Right.
is to hearing your story out loud. So,
Right, from somebody
yeah,
else's point of view.
from someone, or from your own point of view. So if I have to tell you my story and it sounds crazy, or it doesn't sound crazy, the other person sitting across can say, "Wow, that's a crazy story." And just that realization helps them want to do another type of work or get on the track. So I say, you're not crazy. You're not alone. You just may be at capacity.
I think that's the hardest thing, is to see that you think you're alone. You think you're only one, but you lived it. So when you talk to these women, you're like, "Listen, I've been in your shoes." And that's so relatable, because they're not going to see it as like, "Oh, people would look at me and think, wait, I've got this great profession, I've made good money, or, whatever, and I shouldn't be complaining." But it's not about complaining. Don't you think? It's more about trying to find that outlet, trying to find that relief in your own being.
They are looking for the answer. I'm well educated, you're well educated, they're well educated, and nowhere in our education has anyone ever told us how to, or taught us how to take care of ourselves. Now, bubble baths are great. Going to the spa is great, and I'm not discounting that.
Self-care, yeah.
But what I'm talking about is learning to live in a different way. Here's a story I got to tell you.
Yes.
So I'm half Italian,
Yeah, me too.
and my nonno lived with us. And every spring he would go out and he would plant this fabulous garden. And every morning he would go out and he would tend to his lettuce and his radishes and his cucumbers and his scallion onions. And after he was finished, he would get one of those old-fashioned fold-out chairs. You know the one
Yes,
I'm talking about.
yes.
You
Oh,
you
yeah.
fold them out and you just sit there. And he would sit there and he would look at his garden. And what I thought it was hours. It could have been maybe an hour, but I thought he wasted the whole day. So one day I went out to him and I said, "No, why do you sit here and do nothing?" And he looks at me and he says in Italian, I knew Italian back then. I don't know it now.
Either do I.
Yeah, he said, "Il dolce far niente." And that means the sweetness of doing nothing.
I love that. Well, I'm going to write that down. The sweetness
Of doing nothing.
of doing nothing.
And
I don't know if anybody I know will say that.
And of course, at the time, I thought he was wasting time. But I took the next 50 years running away from that concept
Yes.
until I got sick
Right. And you had a wake-up call.
and I had a wake-up call.
I thought you were going to tell me, Renee, that he was sitting there because he took pride in his love of his work.
Well, that's part
You
of
know,
it.
his passion.
It's part of it. He was just sitting there watching his garden
Grow.
grow.
Is there a saying, watch your garden grow? Isn't there a saying?
He was watching his garden
Aw,
grow.
I
So
love
I
that.
find that is very valuable. And that's what I teach women, is how to create these margins. He was creating margins
Yes.
around his life even before it was not fashionable, but he knew something that I didn't know.
No.
So now we get on this hamster wheel and we are so optimized. And Jenny, this didn't happen overnight.
Right.
We just didn't wake up and say, "I think I'm at capacity."
Right.
No, this started generations ago. It started with the agricultural revolution. where we found or we learned very quickly that the more seeds we planted, the more safety we had. We could buy a house, we could buy food. And then we went into the the revolution industry. That's where factories came into play. And remember I Love Lucy when she would shove all those
Candy bars? Were they
those candy bars or those chocolates in her mouth. So we learned very quickly that the more we produced, the more valuable we became
Yes.
to the factories. So this is all going on. So we have the agricultural revolution, we have the industrial revolution, and then 1914 hit where we went to war. And that military mentality worked very well in war, but we brought that back to the boardroom.
That's so true.
And our medal, well, they didn't hand out medals, but they were promotions. And we briefed like we were in the military. And then, oh boy, in the 1990s, what came into our hands? That mobile phone.
Oh, yeah, the cell
And
phone.
boy, did we embrace that.
Mm-hmm.
Where we are on duty 24/7. 24/7, we're on duty. Not only that, but we have emails, we have text messages, we have updates for our applications.
All the social media.
All the social media. And then,
We feel like we're missing out if we're not on social
yes,
media.
and you know that they play to that. They play. I mean, did you watch the documentary? It was on Netflix.
Is it about Facebook?
Yeah, it was Facebook. It was called The Social Dilemma,
Yes.
where it talked about
I've heard of it.
the
I haven't seen
software
it.
engineers
Mhm.
have hacked our psychology. They know exactly what they're doing.
Isn't it weird, Renee? Not to go off topic, and we'll get back. I want to get back to my questions, but isn't it weird that I swear it knows what I'm thinking, or if I just Google like mattresses, all of a sudden in my feed, I have all these mattress companies, and I'm like, how did they know?
Algorithms.
Yes,
And they
it's
watch
kind of scary.
It is. Here's I have an example for you, and then we'll get back to, I wanted to look up. I said to my husband, I said, I think I'm going to buy green spaghetti. It was a test.
Yeah.
Do you know the next thing on my phone that I found was spinach spaghetti?
And you just said it. You
I
didn't write it.
just said it.
It's listening to us. Do 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 do. I felt like we got to write a scary movie for that. So let me ask you this: at some point, this stopped being just an idea and became personal. Was there a moment when you realized we did talk about that? I'm living at capacity. So you would say that was the moment when you were at the doctor's.
Yeah, it was that. That was my aha moment.
Okay.
When I went to the doctors, I got the news, and I knew something had to change, but I didn't know what.
Right.
I didn't know what had. I didn't have the awareness. I didn't have the education, and I didn't have the advocacy for myself. And I had to learn that. And through that process, I went back to school, and I am a national certified health and well-being coach, mainly because I wanted to find out what was wrong with me. And so through that journey, I was able to heal myself. Last year when I had the capacity symposium, I did a lunch and learn, and in the lunch and learn, I said, I'm this age, and I am taking no prescriptions. Now, back in the day, there was blood pressure medicine, there was cholesterol medicine, this and that,
Right.
And now I am medicine free. Now, I'm not saying medicine is bad,
Right.
but food is medicine, and through lifestyle changes, I was able to rid myself of all that medicine. Now, sometimes people just don't want to work that hard, and that is an option. I'll just take the pill. For me, I wanted to get to the root of the problem.
Yes.
So my sleep got better, my exercise got better, what I was eating, got better. The quality of what I was
Right.
eating got better. So everything that I did got better. And through that metamorphosis, through that change, I was able to shed all my medicine and live with intention.
That's incredible. And that's something that hopefully people are listening to that, because that is something you got to take your health and well-being, first. Now, you argue that we didn't wake up one morning and suddenly become overwhelmed. We were
Right.
talking about that. How did we become a culture that glorifies overload? And why do we think women feel so deeply about this? And, Renee, I was talking to someone, I can't remember who it was, but I was like, oh my gosh, you're doing so much more than I'm doing. She's on the board of this nonprofit. She's doing this. She's running this company. And I was like, boy, I don't feel like I'm doing much. You start comparing yourself.
Yeah.
Like, wow, you're doing so much more than me. Why do we care? Like, why is that even like a topic to talk about? Like, why don't we, think like, why do we think women feel so deeply about that overload?
That's a great question. And as I shared, we didn't just wake up one night or one morning and say, I want to be at capacity. This has started. It's been years. It's been over the last 50 years. But women have a double-edged sword. Women have a double-edged sword because not only do they run companies and do things outside of their home, they have their second job. And that is when they get home, they have an invisible calendar. They have an invisible duties that don't get recognized. So they're taking care of aging parents. They're taking care of kids. They're scheduling dentist appointments. They're going to the grocery store. So it's a whole other job. So we have it pretty. I don't want to say it's bad. It's a job that we embrace. But if we acknowledge that we need help doing these things, I mean, we wear busyness like a badge of honor.
Mm-hmm. That's so true.
And being at capacity isn't a badge of honor.
I love that badge of honor.
It is a signal. It is a signal that we need to do things differently. So that's why women, and then, we have this other thing going on. It's called menopause.
I knew you were going to say that.
It's a
It's the
biological
M word.
thing, that none of us will get away from.
Yes.
Because
We all go
women
through it.
between 35 and 65, we're going to go through it.
Right.
So we throw that into it.
Mhm.
I know when I was going through menopause, no one taught me
No.
anything, nothing.
Yeah.
My mother told me to drink a glass of cold water.
Yeah, that's going to cure everything.
I know.
They didn't talk about it then.
No, that we just
And
didn't.
that was a lot
It
to put on us as well. Like, I was in my 40s, and when you were talking about anti-anxiety medicine, I remember going to the doctor saying, I can't sleep. I'm gaining weight. I'm miserable. Oh, you're depressed, or you have anxiety. And then they just put me on. They didn't say anything about perimenopause. I'm like, help
No.
me.
there are 60 symptoms of
Yes,
menopause.
right.
60, from I'm crying all the time
Yes.
to my joints hurt,
Mhm.
and why that happens is because as we go through this process, some go early, some go middle, some go at the end.
Yeah, there's no signs.
There's no signs, and the estrogen is being pulled out of our bones. So that's why, my shoulder hurts, my knee hurts. Oh, well, you need to go to the orthopedic surgeon. You go to the orthopedic surgeon.
There's nothing there.
And there's nothing there, but because he or she is an orthopedic surgeon, well, you have a little bit of arthritis.
We're going to find something.
We're going to go in there. We're going to clean out that arthritis. For
Yes.
me, I remember, I tell this story, and it's embarrassing. My second son and I were coming back from Squirrel Hill, and this is one of the moments there were a few, but this was a big one. We were buying some shoes, I think at Little's at Squirrel
Yes,
Hill.
I remember that place.
And we were coming back home, and I don't remember even what he said, but I went ballistic. And what I remember is not what was said, but the look on his face. I crushed his spirit. And I had no idea why.
Yeah.
No idea why. Another time, I was getting gas, ran into 7-Eleven, got an iced tea, came back to my car. Because of my haste, I spilled some of it on the seat.
Did you cry?
I cried.
I have
I cried.
been there.
I
But
went-
then you look at yourself, like after, I've done that too, where I've like over, dramatic.
Yeah.
And I like flipped out about something and I didn't even recognize myself.
yes.
And I'm like, what am I doing? Why am I acting this way? I could
Right.
not figure it out. And then the person on the other side, they don't know that we're going through this
No.
hormonal shift in our
No. And we don't
lives.
have the language. And that's part of the
Yeah.
book. I think it's chapter 4. I talk about this biological shift.
Yes.
The game is rigged. The
Yes.
game
who
is.
came up with who? Why didn't they tell us about this part?
Yeah, the game is rigged because we have this biological thing going on too. And so we have to navigate that.
Yes. And I love that you use all like, the aviation words. One of the boldest statements in At Capacity is the game is, oh, you just said
I
it.
just said it.
Oh my gosh,
Yeah,
I'm
I
reading
just
it
said it.
right
Sorry,
here.
yeah.
You took it right
Oh,
off. of me.
sorry, yeah.
But yeah, that like when we're saying what it means, like in your words, why is it so rigged? Is it just rigged for women, do you think?
Well, it's rigged because we have this biological thing going on. But if you're in a male-dominated world, they expect you to perform. And I get it. I was in a male-dominated world. But when you have all this other stuff going on, like they say, well, we need more women in aviation. We need more pilots. We need more engineers. We need more ATC controller. We need more mechanics. We need more and more and more. That is true. However, the system is broken that there are not policies in place for women
right.
to like have coaches during this time. They have HR where, you have these apps. Well, what good it will an app do if you don't know what your body is going through?
That's so
Here's an
true.
example. I was called to another corporations. They said, our employee group, they're stressed. What do you think we should do? Well, and then I just listened. Well, what are you doing now? Well, we gave them a mindfulness app. We got a great deal on it. It's $5
Oh,
per
no.
month. And I said, that's wonderful. You're giving them a tool, but they don't know what to do with it. So you have to, again, raise awareness, educate, and then give them the tools.
Yeah. As we're talking, I feel like there's, I have mostly women that tune into my my podcast. But if a woman is listening right now and thinking, you're describing my life, I don't know, like, what is the very first thing you hope they'll do? Because that's the thing. We don't know what's the first thing we do. Because if we're listening and we're out there and we're viewing and listening to this and we're thinking, okay, Reyne, you're talking about me, but what do I do?
First of all, I want them to know that they are not alone.
Yes.
They are not alone. And then they need to become curious instead of critical. And then I want them to feel a sense of relief, a relief that they don't have to live this way.
Right. And it's okay. It's okay to feel the way you're feeling.
It is okay the way you're feeling, but you don't have to live this way because there are now that you know better, you're going to do better. So whether you go to a doctor, whether you create more margins in your life, and I help women do that, I want them to know that they don't have to beat themselves up. They don't have to take on all the responsibility that they're feeling. The women that I sit and I talk to like this, they go, is it just me? Am I the only one that's crazy? No, you're not the only one that's crazy.
Right.
And we're going to move you from, being frantic to feeling like you can breathe again in the world, that you have this new purpose and that whatever you choose, that it is sustainable, because the life that you are living, or the life, even though you said that woman, well, she's on this board, she's on that board, she does this, she does that. Everyone has a different bandwidth. And my bandwidth might be longer than yours.
That's true.
But we are all at capacity. Your bandwidth might be a little shorter, but that has no reflection on who you are as a human being.
Right.
And at the end of the game, you might be more healthy then that woman that is stressed out, because we do know that stress is the underlying
Yes.
cause of inflammation.
Yes, because I feel like that's number one
Number one.
is stress,
Absolutely.
and to find the outlets to stress is really hard.
Absolutely.
Financially, you may not be able to talk to someone, like if you go and taking prescription, like you almost want to, like what you said, Renee, really resonated with me when you were saying that, you kind of have to take everything out and find the root of the problem.
You have to find the root of the problem. We could continue putting Band-Aids by taking this and taking that. And there's a time and the place, but not that first step. Not that first step. And you mentioned this at the very beginning, because I know our time is kind of I always go so fast with you, Jenny.
I love it.
But, I find it very interesting that we can talk about financial margins. We could talk about profit margins. We could talk about safety margins. But the one margin that everyone needs, the one margin that matters the most, we have eliminated that from our lifestyle.
Right.
And it's through the phone and the evolution. People, I'm asked all the time, are you surprised that women are bailing out for more creative and sustainable roles? Are you surprised that women are capacity or at capacity? Are you surprised that women are leaving the workforce? No, I'm not surprised. Just look of how we evolved. So we need to really understand that more. And we do that through now raising awareness through the book, talk shows like yours, events that we can educate ourselves. And then when we know more, or when we know better, we do better.
I love that saying. Like I'm going to. Okay, so before we wrap it up, when someone closes the last page of your book at capacity, what do you hope she feels?
I hope she feels that she is not alone. And I also, when she closes that book, I want her to believe.
And feel relieved.
And feel
that there
relieved.
is someone out there that is relatable to what they're going through.
Absolutely. And to believe that living at capacity isn't a badge of honor. It is going to cost her in one way or another. It's going to cost in relationships, maybe in her job, maybe her health.
Right.
But there is a cost to living at capacity. So when they close that last page, I want them to believe that there is another way to live.
Yes. Oh, Renee. Now, okay, if somebody's out there listening, please address the audience and tell them, where can they get this fabulous book?
Yeah. Well, you could always get this on Amazon.com. Just go to Reyne O'Shaughnessy or put in the search engine at capacity. You can go to my website, www.pilotingtowellbeing.com. And also, can I mention the event in October?
Yes.
Last year, I had an event called At Capacity Symposium. And it was a huge success. It was a sellout. The feedback asked me to do a 2-day event. So this year, October the 22nd and 23rd, we are doing a 2-day event at Wheeling Lodge. That's Ogleby Park. And you can go to my website and get the QR code and just get on the list, because I'm capping it at 100 people and we already have 50 seats already. We are gathering women experts across the board: metabolism, hormone specialists, bone specialists, and a few fun things too. And we're going to bring a premium product to the women of Western Pennsylvania because they're ready.
Yeah.
They are ready.
Oh, Renee, thank you. Thank you for what you're doing. Thank you for writing this book, for taking the time to really focus on where we're at in our world today. You know, by the time you retire, sometimes people are just so exhausted from like what they've been through that they don't get to enjoy the rest of their years, you know? So that's what I see a lot. But I'm just so excited that you were here today. I appreciate you.
Oh, and I appreciate you having this platform to get the word out. Because you know what, Jenny? It's becoming a movement. And I couldn't be more humbled by what I am seeing. Women are calling me, emailing me, saying, tell me, what is this at capacity about?
Yes, Renee, you started this movement, and I'm right behind you. I'm just gonna, trot right behind you and figure it out with you because I just
Thank you,
appreciate your
Jenny.
knowledge and what you've been through and what you bring to
Thank you.
everyone else in my audience. I'm like,
Thank you so
my
much,
God.
Jenny.
Thank you, everyone, for joining me with another episode on Spill with Me, Jenny D. Take care.
Come spill with me. Come spill with me. Come spill